Hey there, and welcome to the UkeStuff channel, and welcome to this full UkeGuide review of this instrument. It is the Koa Kalane Solid Acacia Concert Ukulele. And my playing there at the end didn't do it justice. A couple of reasons why I've been playing soprano earlier today, so my finger's a little bit more used to that. And again, these are Aquila Super Nugget strings on it, and they just sometimes feel harder to play. So with that in mind, I was making some mistakes. I fully admit to it, so please be patient with those mistakes. But in this review, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some subjective issues with this instrument. Then we will look at the specifications. I will summarize it and then give you a UkeGuide rating that goes along with it. Now, just to fill you in a little bit about Koa Kalane, in case you haven't seen the other videos on this channel. Koa Kalane is part of a larger company that imports wood objects into Hawaii, and for the sort of the retail trade there. And some years ago, they got into ukuleles as well. And they were actually really decent little ukuleles, kind of unknown, and amazingly were sold in the front of a Kmart in Hawaii. And some people found them and shared about them, but really didn't, make too much of a splash on the scene. Then there was one really unfortunate review from someone that had bought one there in Hawaii, had found it, been recommended it, bought it, loved it, brought it back to the mainland United States. I always have the tendency to say the United States. Hawaii is obviously part of the United States, but just in my own thinking, mainland United States, they brought it back to the mainland. And while it was here, they didn't really take care of it, and the neck warped. And the story ends there. And they said, well, the ukulele was unplayable at the end. No mention of whether they'd ever reached out to Koa Kalane to see if there's anything they could do or anything like that. That's just where the story ended. So unfortunately, kind of ended up giving Koa Kalane a bad name. Well, about a year ago, perhaps, I saw someone posting about Koa Kalane again, and I contacted the company and said, can you tell me more about you? Would you be interested in having me review one or more of your instruments? And we started communicating back and forth, and I did 2 reviews last year of Koa Kalane instruments. Out of the blue, this spring, they sent me a couple more. And what's really cool is of the instruments that they sent me a couple to keep, but they also sent me some ukuleles to give away to my students. So this is an instrument that next week will be going to one of my students, which is why I'm recording it now, so that it's ready for them. So yeah, Koa Kalane. And I also recently did a review of how did they make it through the winter. And the answer is just fine. I do the minimal amount in terms of humidification. I make sure that the instrument has a humidifier with it, that it's in a room that isn't freezing, and they did just fine, occasionally being played throughout the winter. And the instrument that a student had also made it just fine. That one was a solid top acacia, not solid acacia like this one. However, you wouldn't know by looking at it that it was not. I mean, that's how good their laminate acacia is and how well it matches the rest of their instruments. So that's really quickly the backstory of Koa Kalane for you. If you don't know it, it's really kind of interesting. And yeah, I'm really impressed by these solid acacia instruments. Maybe that's a summary early, but hey, that's okay. It's really true. If I was looking to buy a solid instrument and I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend, this would be probably one of the first places that I looked, especially the concerts. The soprano that I checked out, and that review's here, the soprano pineapple, that was this spring as well. The soprano pineapple had a thicker, chunkier neck. All the concerts have this really nicely shaped neck that's really quite wonderful. We'll get into that later with playability, but just wanted to let you know. So let's get into the full review. In terms of cost, $174 for a solid acacia ukulele that comes also with a light gig bag, shipped. It's a pretty good price. So yeah, so in terms of value, it's an outstanding value. Now, you will likely have to pay to get it set up, so keep that factored in the price if you don't set up instruments yourself. The action on this one was pretty high, and we'll get to that again in playability as well. Now, the build quality, it's traditionally built. There is a bit of extra glue on the inside. It's a French polish on the outside. It's beautiful wood. The Honu turtles there are done very, very well. Headstock looks beautiful. The little plate there of the solid acacia looks good on that mahogany neck, and it is one piece of a neck. There are no joints here. So if you look across, there are no joints there. Also could be part of the reason why that one ukulele warped without humidification is because it didn't have other pieces of wood to like act as sort of like a truss rod. So not too often in the ukulele industry anymore do we see a solid neck, but this one still has, you can follow the grain patterns right through it. It's not a curved joint or whatever at that point. It's all solid. So the build quality overall is pretty good, but let's take a look at the inside where it does get a little messy here and there. All right, let's take a look inside the Koa Kalane concert ukulele. As I go inside, we can see that it has notch kerfing. There is some glue overspill on the sides, especially as you look up at the bridge plate. Quite a bit of glue there. There you can see the support that runs down the middle of the concert ukulele. But then as you look at the sides here, you can see the handwriting notes on the inside where they were marking where things go and which instrument it is. Again, you'd never ever see this unless you stick a camera inside the ukulele. And then of course you can see the horizontal brace on the bottom there. All right, let's take a look at the upper bout of the ukulele. All right, looking at the upper bout of the ukulele, much the same. There's the horizontal brace, extra glue mess here and there. There is the neck block. You can see where the line was drawn for lining it up. Over here, we can see more of that notch kerfing and getting really close, and you can see the glue seepage there. So as you view this ukulele, probably a little too much glue seepage, but it is a traditionally constructed all solid acacia concert ukulele for a very, very good price from Koa Kalane. All right, we're back from the look inside. Now let's talk about the appearance. Overall, it's a gorgeous instrument. It's a gorgeous instrument. Absolutely. Very plain, but the acacia just speaks for itself. It's very pretty. It's not overly flamed or anything. It's just really pretty wood. And the Honu turtles is done nicely. So even if you're not a turtle person, I don't think that's too obnoxious. They also do sell a couple of models without that if you want that. Now, in terms of availability, you can go to www.koakalane.com and you can still order these. I believe they're still available. Their stock may vary depending on what they have in stock. And again, shipping right now is a mess for everybody in every field. Global transportation is just a mess right now, and this is May of 2021. Now, in terms of playability, this one came really too high to be counted, I think, as playable. It was just the strings were way too high, your fingers get caught, that other thing. So when I did the measurements, I made sure to measure them. But since that time, I have lowered the bridge. So the action is closer to about 2.65 at the 12th. And I think it's just about 0.5, maybe a little bit higher than that at the first. So I could bring down the nut a little more, but I think it's going to be fine for whoever's going to be playing it for now. So just again, do keep in mind that if you're going to buy one of these, you are probably going to want to set it up or pay to have it set up. And considering how much money you're saving on a solid wood instrument, that's probably not a bad deal at all still at that price point. So otherwise, love this neck. I've already mentioned it. The contours and shaping of this neck, I think, are some of the best in the industry. It just feels great. It is a 35 millimeter nut, so some people that have really big hands probably won't like it. And the spacing is very traditional for a 35 millimeter nut, so just keep those things in mind as well. Now, in terms of sound quality, I think it's pretty good. Yeah, it just stopped ringing. So it has lots of sustain. Right now, the sustain is in the mid levels of the instrument. That's partially, I think, because of the strings. So if you change the strings to like a fluorocarbon, which is what I normally do, I think you'll have more high-end sparkle with this. So you get that sort of dark flavoring of the acacia, maybe with a little bit extra sparkle. That would make it even better. So the sound with the stock strings is good. I think it could be a little bit better with other strings. It is pretty loud, though. It's not the loudest, but it's decently loud. And again, the sustain is quite wonderful on the instrument. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to let you see what I'm hearing. So I'm going to play the C chord on this instrument and let you see what it does with the original striking of the chord and the sustain. So you can see how that low range and that mid range really continue to ring. And again, I think different strings would bring out the sparkle so that high end that definitely activates as you strum would continue to sustain more as well. Now that we've talked about the subjective areas with the ukulele, let's talk about the specifications. It is a concert ukulele with a scale length from nut to saddle of 15.375 inches. It has 17 frets with 14 to the body. It does have one single side position marker at the 7th, so that's very much like a kamaka, I believe, but then it also does have front position markers, although I would have liked it to have one at the 12th. It is a traditional double bout ukulele. The soundboard, back and sides are all solid acacia on this one. The fretboard is also solid acacia, as is the bridge. And the fretboard is not radius, so it's a flat fretboard. And the bridge is a slotted bridge, so you tie your strings and you just pull them in there like that. The nut and saddle are bone, but it is not a compensated saddle, even though it has a really nice shape to it. The finish is a French polish. It feels really good in the hands. The overall length is 24.25 inches from the tip of the crown, very much Martin-like crown or Kamaka-like crown, to the bottom of the bottom bout. And it weighs 1 pound, 3.9 ounces, which is a little heavier than a number of other ukuleles. It has open geared tuners. And when I measured it, the action was about 1 millimeter at the 1st fret and about 3.5 millimeters at the 12th fret. So I've since adjusted the saddle down, and that has solved it pretty much overall, although I could again still lower the nut slots a little bit. The nut width is 35.14 millimeters, so it's right at 35 millimeters, and the string spacing between the strings is 8.88 millimeters, making it 29.53 millimeters from G to A at the 1st fret. That's always at the 1st fret. So very common 35 millimeter spacing for a 35 millimeter nut. Now, I also like to measure the depth of the instrument at the 3rd fret, so you can see how thick the neck is. It's only 17.77 millimeters from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck, and that was before adjusting the strings down. So it'd be even lower now, and a very nice flat profile. So again, it's my altogether, I think, favorite neck shape in the industry so far that I've played. All right, now that we've gone over the subjective issues and the specifications, let's summarize the instrument. It is a beautiful, solid acacia instrument coming from Hawaii, imported to Hawaii, however, at a great price. They do say that they do final assembly in Hawaii, which probably means hardware and strings and so forth. Still, it's a great, great deal for a solid acacia instrument, especially if the instrument is any good, and these are. They're built well, they sound good, and again, on the concerts, that neck is amazing. Now, on the negative side, even though the value is incredible, you are gonna probably have to pay for a setup when it's done. So do be aware of that. So when it arrives, you'll want to set it up. Now, in addition to the instrument, you also get a very light gig bag, but chances are you're gonna wanna replace that with a better gig bag in no time at all. So also add that to the price of the instrument. I think you'll still find that it's very, very affordable compared to other solid wood ukuleles, especially made of acacia. So yes, I do think it's worth the cost. I do absolutely recommend it. And I do want to thank Koa Kalane for sending this one to me and for allowing me to give this to one of my students. They are going to love it this next week. Finally, I give every ukulele a rating between 0 and 5 ukuleles. This one, as it came to me, I would give it a 4 out of 5 ukulele. That's mainly because of the setup issue and the fact that I had to deal with the setup. A new player would not know what to do, and it would be a worse playing experience for them. And again, you do have to pay extra to have it set up if you don't know how to do it yourself. So that's why that knocked it down a little bit. But if you know how to set up an instrument and you are comfortable with that, or you want to buy an instrument as a gift and like to set it up for somebody, this is a great option. So absolutely recommended. Wonderful instrument. Just be aware of the fact you want to buy a gig bag and you'll need to set it up. All right, thanks for joining me for this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.